Hello everyone, and welcome back to Toku Toy Theory, where we take a look at toys from various tokusatsu series and try to figure out why they look and act the way they do. So, in this episode, I'm going to be looking at Kamen Gaim's three primary arms changes: Pine Arms, Ichigo Arms, and Suika Arms. We'll be looking at the lock seeds, as well as the arms themselves, and their arms weapons. So, let's begin. First up, we have the Pine Lock Seed and the Pine Armor part. Now, looking at them, one thing you'll notice that's actually pretty cool, and that is rather a trend throughout all of the line, is that the design of the fruit on the Lock Seed actually is the basis for the armor part itself. As you can see, both of them have diamond-shaped, or rather pyramid-shaped spikes all throughout them, a golden ring on the top, and then green leaves that stick up from said top. And this is actually kind of cool because it basically gives you a preview for what the armor part will look like. Though this isn't completely consistent throughout the entire line, it is a general pattern. So, for each lock seed, they have their own unique startup sound. And for all of Gaim's lock seeds, they have Japanese-style flares. And next we look at Gaim Pine Arms. So if you look at the armor, you can see that it is a lot heavier and covers a lot more than Orange Arms does. And going by its appearance and going by my research, it seems that this form's armor is most likely based on a Sohei, or Buddhist warrior monk. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that's what Benkei Musashibo was. They were warrior monks who fought alongside samurai and often employed a variety of weapons like giant clubs or bows and arrows. In this case, Gaim Pine Arms is equipped with a flail called the Pine Iron. And from my research, I found that there was actually a flow type weapon used in Japan called the Chigiriki, so that's most likely what the Pine Iron is supposed to be. You can see that the pineapple pattern continues to the new head part, with leaves on both the sides of the head and on top. Additionally, the Pine Iron can combine with the Muso Saber by attaching it in the same place as with the Daidaimaru, though that doesn't really serve very much purpose and is rather an unwieldy idea to have a sword with a chain flail coming from the other end. I'll admit this was one of the tougher ones to kind of get a hold on, as warrior monks aren't that well known, and there weren't all that many types of warriors that wore this kind of armor back in older times of Japan. But it certainly does put things in perspective. Next we have the Ichigo Lock Seed and the Ichigo armor part. So obviously both of these are based on the strawberry, and once again you can see that they have pretty much the same design, with the green leaves at the top, the seeds embedded into the actual strawberry with a little divot going down, just kind of showing the indent part, as well as lines running across the body. And for both the Pine Lock Seed and the Ichigo Lock Seeds, one thing that you can notice is that while they have the fruit pattern on there, in order to keep the fully round cover, they also have black parts off to the side that fill out the space. Additionally, both the Pine Lock Seed and the Ichigo Lock Seed have numbers that come before the Orange Lock Seed, which is something that is rather odd when it comes to the numbering system. And it's basically kind of just an odd one, the odd ones out, as most other Lock Seeds come after the rider's base Lock Seed number. But it still is very cool how you have the same design for the Lock Seed and the arms themselves. And now we look at Ichigo Arms. So whereas the Pine Arms was larger and more heavyweight, Ichigo Arms is the polar opposite, being a smaller, more lightweight armor. As can be seen, it also has asymmetrical shoulder pads, and that's due in part to how they created a design to where they actually had a bottom part so you get the full strawberry shape. And you can see that the additional parts of the helmet are a lot less pronounced, with a small little stem on the top and then two fins on the sides. Now for this design, this is most likely based on a ninja, going by the phrase of the Ichigo Lock Seed, which included the phrase shushuto, which is basically a sound effect for when ninjas would throw shuriken or kunai, and Ichigo Arms is armed with the Ichigo kunai. These being ninjas throwing knives that they could also use for hand-to-hand combat. And this makes sense since the strawberry is rather small and really wouldn't be very good to use a single strawberry as a weapon, so instead he has multiples of Ichigo kunai that he can use either for throwing or hand-to-hand combat. And the cool thing about the Ichigo Arms is that because of its design, the armor plate, or the chest plate, is hidden while it's in the armor part mode. It actually also has a design where the armor on the back is more flush. You don't have the connector peg for the helmet part showing. And finally we have the Suika Lock Seed and the Suika armor part. Now because these are based on a watermelon, and watermelon is one of the largest fruits to exist, they decided to go big with the armor part itself. As you can see, once again, the design from the front of the Lock Seed matches up with the design of the armor part, with the green along with the textured black parts on the sides and the middle, which are based on the black stripes that watermelons sometimes have. They even both have a stem up at the top. Now the cool thing about the Suika armor part is that it's about the size of a small watermelon. And not only do you have all of this detail, which matches up with the outside of a watermelon, but they also colored all of the inside red, like the inside of a watermelon, and even had indented details for where the seeds would be. So this really is the closest of any of the armor parts to the fruit it's based on, which is very cool. Now the thing about the Suika Arms is that it's not only a form, but also the super machine of the series. So, while it does have its arms mode, or it does create an arms, it also has a couple of other modes, but we'll start with the arms itself. we'll start in the main mode, which is armor mode. So as you can see, in this form, Gaim takes the form of a giant suit of samurai armor. And this is one of the most creative uses for the fruits in the entire line, because you have all of the shell for the watermelon basically folding up to form different parts of the armor, as well as having the arms and legs hidden within the armor itself. Now, as you can see, for the helmet, instead of simply being a helmet that attaches to the back of his head, it's an entirely new helmet that attaches on top. You can even see that it has a watermelon slice crest up top. And once again, it does continue that pattern of having watermelon seeds throughout the red parts of the armor, even going down to the patterns on the arms and legs. Now, if we actually look closer at the arms and legs, you can see that these are basically mechanized versions of Gaim's arms and legs. So this is really meant for Gaim, even though it can be used by other riders. And it is a very creative concept. Now, Suika Arms is armed with the Suika Sojinto. Sojinto meaning double blades. And this is kind of an odd weapon, as this is not something that I found to have actually existed historically. And it seems like the Sojinto is a concept that's only ever used in fiction. And this is kind of what the Muso Saber Nagina mode really is. As, like I said in that video, a real Nagina is just a polearm with one blade at the top, though from what I found, a lot of Sojinto are basically two swords connected at the hilts that can be split apart, while this one is just two swords connected by a handle. But this is still a very dynamic form because it basically encapsulates the entire rider to where it's more like a mech suit than a rider form. Next we look at gyro mode. Now this one is quite interesting in design, as it takes the Suika arms and instead of turning it into a suit of samurai armor, instead turns it into this kind of flying battle platform, where you now see a lot more of the detail on the insides, and yet it also leaves the rider a little bit more exposed. Having said, it does bring down part of the armor to create a heads-up display, and even has adjustable gyro scopes, or gyro propellers, that are down within the shoulders of the armor. It has a lot more of a kind of foot space, as it is more wide, but is an interesting concept, and it's a lot more vehicle-like than the armor mode. And lastly, we have Big Ball mode. This one is probably the most arbitrary of the three modes, and the one that has the most silly concept, as with this one, the basic idea is just having the rider with inside the armor while it's folded up into fruit, then using it like a bowling ball to squash enemies. A very simple concept, but it's still pretty amusing. And there we go. So as you can see, Gaim covers his bases pretty well by having his three main forms based on the three most well-known types of Japanese warriors: Samurai, Sohei, and Ninja. And the other two are done just as well as the Orange Arms, with the heavier, more spiky pineapple being used for pine arms, as well as using the said pineapple as a flail, to the lighter and smaller strawberry being used for Ichigo arms, and instead of using one strawberry as his weapon, using multiples of them as the Ichigo kunai. And finally we have the standout Suika arms, which takes the largest of the fruit and has multiple uses for it, with the most obvious being the large bowling ball, to pulling it out into a giant suit of samurai armor, to more opening up and using it as a flying battle platform. So we've definitely got some cool ideas here, and you can see that for the different riders, they're not just based on one type of warrior, they're based on different kinds of warriors from different regions of the world. And we'll see more of that as we move on. But for now, what we have here is definitely pretty cool, and it really does go show that they are being pretty creative in this series. So, next time I'll finally be reviewing the much anticipated Yokai Watch Dream, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and or subscribe, and you can check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/krx50. And for now, this is KRX50, writing off.